Dolphins Detail, or welcome in if you're joining us for the first time. I'm Jake Mendel. Joining me as always is Marek Brave. We are in the middle of our Down to the Details series where we're taking a closer look at some of the Miami Dolphins skill positions. I say some, we're going to do all of them. We're just rolling with it. But our goal here is we're going to answer 4 questions. Now, it's important to keep in mind the draft hasn't come. Byron Jones, the Dolphins. Yeah, I'm about to free up $13 million, guys. Get excited.
What are you going to do with that money, Jake?
I'm gonna sign Byron Jones. That's what I'm gonna do. But the draft hasn't started yet, so there's a couple things in flux, and I think safety is one of those groups where we might see a little shaking and rumbling. But our goal today is to look at 4 things. Where does this group stand? What makes them good? What needs to happen this offseason? And what does success look like on the field? So, Merrick, I'm just going to ask you right away. Give me an overview. 1,000 feet in the sky. What does the safety group look like going into 2023?
I think this safety group looks like Jevon Holland is about to be an all-pro safety in the Vic Fangio defense. As soon as the Dolphins were rumored to be in on Fangio and then became the front runners for Fangio and then eventually signed Fangio, but wait, no, they didn't sign Fangio. And then a week later, they did sign Fangio. Remember that saga? That was kind of wild. But
So fun.
as soon as Fangio officially signed on as defensive coordinator of the Miami Dolphins, I thought to myself, the biggest benefactor, the biggest beneficiary of Fangio joining the Dolphins would be Jevon Holland. You know, if you look in the past in Fangio defenses, the safeties for those teams have always had career years under Fangio. We're talking Pro Bowls, we're talking All Pros, and I think that's what you'll be talking about at the conclusion of the 2023 season with Jevon Holland.
There was a game, it must have, maybe even been 3 years ago at this point, where Ryan Fitzpatrick came in for Tua and he was leading a game winning drive against the Broncos. And that drive was absolutely halted by Justin Simmons making like the anticipation he had on this ball. You know, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's gunning it left, right, and center. His anticipation to come in and pick that, I mean, you see the ups and downs of Fitz magic, but that was more of just a great defensive player making a great defensive play. And if you're looking for that Vic Fangio defense, I'd go check out that play because while it was negative to the Dolphins, I thought it was pretty awesome. Don't tell anyone. But Jevon Holland at 23 years old, Pro Football Focus had him as one of the top tier safeties after his rookie season. And Merrick, I think the issue, I wouldn't even call it an issue. His numbers might not have looked as good. The trend, the hype might have not have been there because I just feel like he was stretched a little thin just with the Miami Dolphins injuries in the secondary. They were asking him to do a lot of things. And overall, generally speaking, I thought he did a solid job.
Yeah, I don't think he was put in um, the position to have the stats that everybody was hoping he would have during his second season in the league. But I thought he played admirably. I thought he played well. I thought he did his job well. And I think in the Fangio defense, he'll be asked to do different things, which will see him racking up the stats that maybe we thought he was going to have in his sophomore season. But now that he's in his third year in the league under maybe the greatest defensive coordinator of all time, I think he's finally going to rack up those numbers that we all thought he was going to.
I thought it was interesting that whether it was when Vic Fangio was about to sign or Jalen Ramsey too, every report was mentioning just we're excited to have Jevon Holland. We're excited to be with Jevon Holland. So that's just something to keep in mind. But outside of the budding superstar at 23 years old, we have Brandon Jones. He's 24. He's recovering from an ACL injury he suffered on October 26th. You have Rowan McKinley, who started a lot of games in place of Jones. He was an undrafted free agent. Another one like Kader Kohu just thrown in the mix. You also have Elijah Campbell, who has played 23 games over the last 2 years. He played 16 games in 2022. No interceptions, 1 pass defended, but I think he kind of also helps in special teams. And lastly, in free agency, the team signed Deshaun Elliott. He played 14 games with the Detroit Lions last year, and he kind of fits that. Again, it's kind of generic, but that thumper role you want at that other safety position.
Yeah, and one underrated aspect of this safety group that I found myself thinking about, I think it was yesterday, was the fact that you have two sets of college teammates in the same group. So you have Javon Holland, who played at Oregon alongside Verone McKinley, and you have Brandon Jones, who played at Texas alongside Deshaun Elliott, who they just signed. So you have players who are familiar with each other, who have spent time playing with each other, now playing alongside each other on the Dolphins defense. And to me, that can only be a good thing.
Speaking of good things, what gives him an edge? I mean, obviously, you go right back to Jevon Holland. He was that safety net, every pun intended, deal with it. He's on the end of your defense, hard hitting, strong communicator. You see the ball hawking ability. He was ninth in the league in tackles. His PFF grade went from 84 to 64. It's not the Bible, but I just think it's a nice another statistic that provides context. And in reality, like none of these, nothing, even touchdowns, tackles, whatever your stat you're using, it doesn't define the players. So they're just all little benchmarks. But Merrick, outside of Javon Holland, what could make this group really saucy going into next season?
What what I think's going to happen, what gives them an edge is having Vic Fangio be their maestro, you know? Like we talked about. Historically, Vic Fangio's safeties have had career best years when they've played for him, you know, Pro Bowls, All Pros, all that stuff. So what gives them an edge is the opportunity to play in that Fangio style defense. I think you're going to see a fantastic year from Jevon Holland. I really like the addition of Deshaun Elliott. That's a very underrated signing. Like you said, he's a thumper. You go back 2 seasons, he hit Derrick Henry, who is literally the most powerful man in the NFL, probably, at least at the running back position. He hit Derrick Henry so hard, it looked like he knocked him out, forced a fumble, which was recovered by his team. Like, that's Man, if you got a player that can do that, if you have a player that can strike that type of fear in opposing offenses, that's just another feather in the cap. That's just another arrow in the sling that you can use to attack these offenses. And I think Deshaun Elliott was a really underrated signing for these Dolphins.
As you spoke there, I just imagined a Landon Roberts running through a tight end to tackle a running back at the same time. That's all I thought about. It's so impressive.
Did you see Houtz's tweet uh, about Deshaun Elliott, where he said that I believe it was about Deshaun Elliott, where he said he was going to hit somebody so hard he was going to make him crap his pants. Oh, I think he said it about Trent Sherfield when Sherfield signed with the Bills, and all the Dolphins players were like, "No!" And then Hout said, "Well, you're just gonna." I think he said it to Holland actually. You're just gonna have to hit him so hard that he craps his pants. And then Javon Holland responded, and he said, "Yo, what?" He was like, he was so confused. Classic Houts.
That's how you make things fun, though. You don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to be violent. You don't have to. That was just kind of a funny little, jab type thing when you really boil it down. One thing I want to know, I think there's so much Brandon Jones disrespect going around. Everyone was hyped up for Jordan Poyer. Everyone was waiting for the Dolphins to make a big move at safety. But man, I really like Brandon Jones, and I might have a little bit of a bias when we're talking about safeties because Brandon Jones, to me, he screams Jeremiah Bell. He screams Rashad Jones. He just screams one of those big play threats on the defense. I think his coverage skills are okay. They aren't great, but just as a versatile blitzer, someone who's going to play in the box, someone who can do a lot of things, I think we're not giving him enough flowers. I understand because he's coming off the injury, but man, I think he can still be a stud.
Yeah, and I mean, just think about that, right? If you can have Javon Holland playing that high safety, being that ball hawk that he is, but now you can blitz Brandon Jones or Deshaun Elliott. You got both of those guys out there. If as long as Brandon Jones gets healthy and stays healthy, you can blitz either one of those guys. You never know who's coming. Vic Fangio likes to play a lot of three safeties in the formation on the defense, so you can have all three of those guys out there at the same time, and you don't know who's coming, who's dropping back. Maybe you send both Jones and Deshaun Elliott. Maybe you send all three. I don't know. I'm not the
On third and
coordinator.
11.
Maybe yeah, maybe we'll see that. Who knows? But yeah, I agree. Brandon Jones, really good player, and he was kind of getting the short end of the stick when the people on the internet, on the Twitter, were talking about the Jalen Ramsey edition. They were talking about, wow, you got Ramsey, you got Howard, you got Wilkins, you got Jevon Holland, and Brandon Jones was like, "Oh, what about me? I'm still here." And then you saw people finally start giving Jones his flowers there. But I think this is going to be a really fun position group to watch in a defense that is also going to be really fun to watch.
Five guys under contract right now. You obviously Javon Holland starting, Brandon Jones if he comes back healthy is in the mix. You don't sign a guy just to cut him, so you assume Deshaun Elliott at 25 is going to play a big role. But Merrick, I gotta ask, is there anything else that needs to happen this offseason with this group? Is there anything missing? Anything you want to see?
Well, you said Five Guys, and I got hungry. Those delicious cheeseburgers. I don't know if you got them up there in
Not an
Massachusetts,
ad.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, I think there's room for another body. I think you might see a draft pick in the safety group, especially considering how much Vic Fangio loves his safeties. And if he plans on sticking around here for a while, I think in his introductory interview, he said he wants to be with the Dolphins for 10 seasons, which was music to my ears. I would very much welcome that. But if that's the case, then you're going to need fresh bodies as these players age out. So maybe you see a draft pick at the safety group. Maybe it's with that third round pick, or maybe it's with one of the later picks, or even an undrafted signing. But I don't think they're done at the safety group. But the Dolphins have done a really great job of not, at least on the defensive side of the ball, they've done a really great job of not kind of painting themselves into a corner and needing very specifically to draft a player from this position group or that position group. The offensive side of the ball, that's another story so far. But at least on the defense, if they take a safety, cool. If they don't, not a big deal. They've got a bunch of bodies in that room that are going to be more than serviceable.
What would your reaction be? I mean, they have a second round pick, a third round pick, and two other picks. We don't even have to get into those; they're just late rounders. What would your reaction be? That second round pick, I already know when we talk about offensive line, that second round pick's the right tackle. Where would you draft safety? Where would you be happy with it?
If they use their second round pick or third round pick on a safety, I'll get it. I'm not going to be the most excited. It depends on who it is. I like Brian, and trust me, I'm not this big draft guru, film guy, whatever. We are Dolphins fans, making a show for Dolphins fans. We don't claim to be the greatest experts in the world, but I do like Brian Branch out of Alabama. Maybe with that third round pick, if he were to slip there. And I know the Dolphins and Chris Greer love to draft their SEC guys, so we'll see if that's an option. But I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be thrilled because I do think they have a solid group already. But it's certainly a possibility, and Dolphins fans should prepare themselves mentally if that were to be the case.
And so this question gets a little complicated because, usually you just had two safeties on the field. Vic Fangio, even last year with Josh Boyer, three safeties on the field. Eric Rowe was a stud for this unit as that third safety. What does success look like on the field? I think it's another situation where, opposing offenses are going to look at the secondary and try to avoid it in as many ways as possible. So, with that in mind, with the idea of, hey, offenses know they're going to be good, they're going to try to scheme against them. What is success for the safeties?
I think success for the safeties, again, it starts with Jevon Holland. It might end with Jevon Holland. I think Jevon Holland having a career year is to be expected. I fully expect it. A lot of people on Dolphins Twitter fully expect it. So I'm expecting some turnovers here, some good stats, some good numbers, and I'm expecting some victories against some good teams. The Dolphins have a tough schedule, at least on paper, heading into 2023. So this defense being a top unit is going to be important if they want to have success in 2023. So I do think they will be successful. Um, and I think it starts in that group, at least with Javon Holland.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we all circle back to, right? It's Jevon Holland. And to kind of put a bow on it, you wonder, all right, he was stretched thin last year. What's going to look different this year? I just think you're still going to see him be that guy in the back, but just his ability to come up, be a communicator, blitz off the edge, tackle. I just think you're going to see more highlight plays. You might just not see him being, ninth in the league in tackles. I don't think you really want your safety to be that guy because you're usually the last guy in defense. I look back a couple years ago where it was the Dolphins versus the Chiefs. Tyreek Hill was still there. Clayton Fejedelem had to come into the game, and the first play after, right over his head, touchdown, just like that. So that is one situation where I'm wondering, hey, Brandon Jones, we got to have trust in him. And who else is going to step up as one of those trustful guys? Is it going to continue to be, oh man, he's already escaping my head. Sorry. Verone McKinley, is it going to be him just because he was here last year? He has that experience with Howard, or is one of these other guys just going to step up and take the spot?
Yeah, I think maybe we are doing a disservice to Verone McKinley by not mentioning him as much. He did come in to play last year as an undrafted rookie. And he played well. He had
Mhm.
his moments where he flashed. I think he played maybe better than some people expected. But when I was going through the draft process in 2022, he was a guy that I was targeting in some of the later rounds for the Dolphins. I thought he might be a nice addition, and I thought the fact that he played with Javon Holland in college would be an added bonus. So I was excited to see that they were able to pick him up as an undrafted free agent, and was equally as excited to see that when he was pressed into action, he played well. So if you see Verone McKinley taking significant snaps in this defense in 2023, something probably did go wrong. Most likely an injury, and we're going to cross our fingers, knock on wood, do whatever we need to do to make sure. Can't even reach my wall there. If he gets injured, that's the reason why. I'm just going to do it because I am a little superstitious there. But if he is playing significant snaps, something went wrong. But I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world, and there are worse players that you could put into that position. You just named one, Clayton Fedulum. uh, if something did go wrong. So Verone McKinley, good player. Excited he's on the Dolphins.
I don't know what it is. I've always had a bias for safeties. Loved Jeremiah Bell. Loved Rashad Jones. I have an autographed picture.
I
Here's a
have a
trivia
Jeremiah
question.
Bell jersey, Jake.
Ooh,
That's how
you have
much
everyone's jersey though. That's different. That's very different.
I'm a jersey connoisseur, but I do have a Jeremiah Bell jersey.
Here's a tough trivia question. I don't know why I'm thinking about him. Who is the safety? It must have been 2015-16 from the Detroit Lions. I think he had dreads. I cannot think of his name to say. Luis it might be a part of it, and I'm struggling on it. I don't know why, but he's in my head, and I cannot think of his name.
And he played for the Lions, not the Dolphins, or
He
did he
played
play
for
for
the
the Dolphins
Lions and then
eventually?
came to the Dolphins for a
And then he
year and
got
a half, maybe.
injured, like, right,
Yep.
like he was playing lights out. He does have a unique name. He was playing lights out, and then he got injured, and we never saw him again. Are you
If
looking
you
this up right
know
now?
his name, if you know his name, leave it in
I'm
the comments below. Merrick,
I'm
you're not allowed
googling
to
this.
say it. We're too old to be Googling all the answers. We're going to sit here, we're going to pout, and we're going to figure it out on our own. But thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of Dolphins Detail. If you like what you're listening to, please hit that subscribe button and let us know what you think. Is this safety group going to bounce back next year? Is Brandon Jones, is his hair going to be on fire all year? Let us know. But until next time, thank you for joining us.